All Departments is sponsored by the White Bear Micropub on Southbourne Grove, the perfect pre- and post-game venue to chat about the game and only a 25-minute walk to the ground, or there's a bus stop right outside. Wear your AFCB shirt on any match day and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
Here come the cherries and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. Our festive Cherries ensured a happy Christmas on the south coast when they returned from a lively encounter with West Brom with all 3 points wrapped up. Here to discuss how he came out on top in a clash of styles at the Hawthorns is Tony Mutter. Tony, welcome to All Departments.
Oh.
So, it was a bit of a battle at times at the Hawthorns yesterday, but I think most people would say we deserved to come out on top. Was that your opinion?
Yeah, I would say we were over the 90 minutes, we were the best team. They had a spell start of the second half, didn't they? But we were a lot better football team than them.
Yeah, definitely. It was a clash of styles, I think it's fair to say. Eddie stuck with the same team that won against Manchester United. Josh King was named in the starting lineup, but then he didn't appear on the pitch. Glenn Murray came out, and I had a quick look on my phone, and Twitter said King had done his hamstring or had some sort of problem with his hamstring. That appeared to be genuine. I saw some pictures on Match of the Day of Murray being given some last-minute instructions, which I assumed were from the moments before the game kicked off. You never quite know how they're going to cut it in. But it also made me think, and somebody suggested this on Twitter, that managers sometimes indulge in various bits of sharp practice, and I don't think it would be above Eddie Howe or below Eddie Howe maybe to pull something like that in terms of saying King was playing and then at the last minute saying, oh, he's not fit. I mean, you couldn't do it too often and get away with it, but I think it probably was a genuine injury that followed on from last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. I think, there's a lot of all these mind game theories and that, isn't there? But yeah, I don't know whether Eddie would do that. But as you say, you wouldn't put it past them to do something like that, to keep them guessing. But
yeah, I imagine there's all sorts of things go on that we're blissfully ignorant of. Anyway, as you said, we're on top from the get-go, really. We were able to play our normal rapid-fire passing game. We had an early chance. Junior Stanislas had a shot from distance, but Mile pushed it away. It was very much exhibition stuff early on, I thought. We dominated possession. I saw the half-time statistics. I think we had 71% of the possession in the first half. I think at the end of the game it was 67%. And West Brom at that point were not able to play their game because they couldn't really get hold of the ball. We were just denying them the ball. But for all that, and I said Junior Stanislas had a chance, we didn't have many other clear-cut chances in the first half hour, even though we were totally in charge of the game. And around me there was some frustration at times in us, or people feeling that we overplayed it, because we tend to play it around the edge of the penalty area quite a lot from one side to the other. And then it comes into the middle, and like maybe Harry Arthur's on the ball, Andrew Sermon, and Gosling, and people around me saying shoot. And do you feel that at times?
Yeah, I thought that. Me and the wife sort of discussed it. We thought the Stoke must just be keeping everyone right back in the penalty area. We didn't look like they had a clear-cut shooting opportunity, and I just assumed they were told not to do that because that's just sort of like giving West Brom the ball back, isn't it? If we shoot and miss, because their main attacking thing is to hoof it, give it to the goalie and hoof it up the front, from what I could see.
Yeah.
We were keeping the ball, keeping it away from them. But it was, I don't know. It was a good away performance, wasn't it? It was keeping them back. But we were getting a bit frustrated. You do think, why did they have to pass it or take that touch? Why can't they just rip a shot off or something?
I think they've obviously been told to play like that, and we've had a lot of success, so it's difficult to, say, well, couldn't we do it differently? Because even now in the Premier League, despite everything that's gone on, we found a way to make it work. So the style of play is something I don't think anyone would really change. I guess at 0-0, when you're dominating the game, you want to get a goal, and you think if you can get one, then it could open up and you could get a couple more and put the game to bed. But Pulis, as anybody would, I suppose, gets plenty of men behind the ball, and the times when Arter or whoever could have shot from the middle of the penalty area, there was too much traffic, too many bodies in the way. Almost every time it would have been blocked, and so we're always trying to unlock the door, and it it has to be very precise to make that work. But it didn't really matter in the end, and I suspect we'll continue to play like that. But I think, there is it's one very small gripe in an otherwise, brilliant experience of watching our football team, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I thought yesterday was sort of playing a team like West Brom with their their reputation, and even when they went down to 10 men, if any team are used to playing with 10 men, it'd be Pulis's team, wouldn't it? And in the way we held them off and were the better side overall. We deserved the win. I thought it really showed a lot of sort of maturity. It was a big step up, wasn't it? And a couple of injuries, one before the game, and then Junior sort of pulling up with a tight hamstring. We still held on, didn't we? Yeah,
we showed, like you said, a lot of maturity, a lot of know-how to get the job done in circumstances that were somewhat different to those that we faced in the previous two games, which were, massive triumphs in their own right. Although going into this game, and it's easy to say this after we won against Chelsea and Man United, but I thought, West Brom are actually a team that have put together a few good results recently, whereas Chelsea and United, on recent form, they were not doing very well. We met them at just the right time, whereas West Brom had drawn away at Anfield, they nearly won. They recently beat Arsenal at home, they held Spurs at home, and so you think, that could be, on paper, a trickier fixture, despite obviously Chelsea and United being bigger names. But we were totally able to stamp our authority on the game almost throughout. There was a period in the second half which we'll come on to talk about, which is when they scored their goal. But the game pretty much turned from us completely dominating possession but not having many chances to us looking like we had a very good chance to win the game when, it came to life, not necessarily in a good way, when McLean was sent off. And this was just an absolute, thuggish was what Chris Temple described it as on Radio Solon. The events leading up to the sending off were that Smith and McLean kind of went in for a 50-50. And I've seen that from a couple of angles. From one angle, it looks like McLean fouls Smith. From the other angle, it looks like Smith fouls McLean. Either way, the ref didn't give it, and the game carried on. But what happened next was just unbelievable, because
it was, wasn't it? We
go on.
We watched it down in the corner. Yeah, we were down in the corner where we were. You could just see it happening. like you say, there was a challenge for the ball in midfield, and McLean punched the ground like he was frustrated he didn't get a free kick, and you could just watch him get up and just run over and kick Smith as soon as he got the ball, didn't he? It was I don't know, it was sort of like Sunday morning football, wasn't it? It was, when someone's got a hangover or something, they just yeah, I thought it was, you don't really expect to see that.
No. Tony Pulis says he's not the sharpest tool in the box, James McLean. I think tool might be the appropriate word in that phrase. But yeah, what was going through his head? I mean, he obviously saw red. I mean, in more ways than one, and he just. What did he expect the outcome to be? If he thought to himself, right, that's it, I'm going to go over the top, studs up, never mind where the ball is, it might as well not be there, right under the nose of the referee. There was only ever going to be one outcome. He gave Mike Dean no choice but to send him off, did he?
He didn't. Exactly. He hadn't put any thought into it, had he? You think these sort of older professionals and that, they've learned how to get retribution and revenge, and they, even a lot an off the ball thing, just give Smith a dig in the ribs or something. But like you say, just to run 50 yards and right on the centre of the pitch, right in front of the referee, and the linesman was over there as well, wasn't he? And to kick someone sort of halfway up the shin, boot them up in the air. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of thought went into it. There wasn't much thought process.
No, I mean, I was 100 yards away, I'd say, about that much. And I could see from there that it was a sending off. And he pulled out a red card, and McLean shook, you could see on Match of the Day, he shook his head a bit and muttered to himself as he walked off, but he knew it was red. He knew before he'd even made contact, he was going to get a red card. It was as if he was saying to himself, well, I know I'm going to get a red card, but I don't care. This has to be done. I have to have my revenge. I mean, Tony Pulis has got, justifiably, a reputation for winding his players up for battle. But he must, I guess it's a risky strategy, because then they're always treading that line where if they go across it, they're going to pick up cards and free kicks and blah, blah, blah. But he must talk to the players a lot about not going completely over the top. And he must be furious with McLean for doing that, because there was just there's absolutely no excuse for it, was there? No,
there was just, I mean, it's not like it had been a dirty game in the first half hour, was it? And it's, as you say, we were tapping the ball around and moved from about, and it just came out of the blue. And I think, like Pulis's reputation, like I said, I think he must prepare them to play with 10 men for a certain amount of the game. They must be used to it. But he's within a half an hour, and they weren't even playing that well, were they? And it's just, it didn't galvanise them, not for the rest of that half anyway. It didn't sort of bring out the best in them at all, did it?
No, we had the initiative already, and then we had more of it, especially for the rest of the first half and going into the second half as well. That did change a bit towards the time they scored their goal. But it obviously gave us a big advantage, and we tried to make it count. And we had a few, not gilt-edged, but a few minor chances. The most significant one was right towards the end of the second half, when Charlie Daniels played the ball out to Junior Stanislas. You could see Charlie pointing to Junior where he wanted him to go, and Junior ran around the back of him and then received the ball out on the left-hand side from where we were, and crossed it in. Then Matt Ritchie, who's, I don't know, 5'6" or something, got his head on the ball. But you could see on the telly, couldn't really see too well from where I was at the Hawthorns, that he was pushed, a little push from Chris Brunt in his back was enough to make Matt miss the header. I don't think I've ever seen him score with a header. I've only seen him head the ball about 3 times, I think. But Well, we had the luck, really, with the penalty in the second half. But did you think that one was a penalty?
Well, we were just about getting ready to go, so I've only seen it on the telly. But it's one of those things, isn't it? And you think back to Mike Dean last year at Brentford, and we had at least one clear-cut penalty, didn't we? And he never gave it. So I think we reduced something from him, but it was definitely more of a penalty than the one was given against us then at Swansea, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was probably they couldn't have had too many complaints if Dean had given that one for the push, although it was a sly little push, and you do see those go begging quite a lot. They'd have less to complain about that than they would about the penalty we actually did.
Oh, yeah, you meant that one, yeah. Yeah, that one in the first half, like you say, we were right down the other end, weren't we? But you could see Matt, he was sort of just jumping to go for it, and then all of a sudden he went a little bit quicker, didn't he? And you would think the only way he'd do that is if someone give him a bit of help, as in a push in the back or something. And I was surprised because, and the ref was over that side, the linesman was over that side as well, wasn't he? So, I haven't seen it on telly. You would say the Matt Ritchie one probably was a penalty, but yeah.
It was a funny day for the officials. Mike Dean at Brentford, as you said, didn't then look like a Premier League referee. We hadn't played in the Premier League at that point. Yesterday, he had 3 major decisions to make. He got the 2 sendings off were clear cut. He got both of those right. I think even Tony Pulis thought he got them both right. The penalty, well, it was all just, we'll talk about that in a little while, a matter of whether, he considered the offence to be still taking place in the area or not. Obviously, he did. But there was loads of other stuff that went on with Mike Dean. The one that really stuck out for me was later in the second half when we were trying to bring on Mark Pugh for Junior Stanislas.
Yeah.
And there was this nonsense. We had a corner and the board went up and Junior had done his, well, apparently he's hurt his hamstring, let's hope it isn't too bad. And he trotted off and Pugh was getting ready to come on. And then Mike Dean called them back. Have you got any idea what was going on there?
No idea. That baffled me as well because, like you say, you could see Pugh was about to come on. And as you're saying, Jason was, and the board went up and Jason Tyndall was there sort of waving around. And then all of a sudden he's waving him back on and you think, you wouldn't think our management team had just suddenly changed their mind, especially with a pacey player like Junior looking like he's pulled a hamstring or something. They wouldn't send him back on, would they? And I think Mike Dean does. Well, I don't know. Referees sort of baffle me. And I don't know the rules that well, not the letter of the law. So some of the things they do seem odd, don't they? And that was one. He like you say, Junior had walked over there to go off, and then all of a sudden he's got to come back on. And did we get another corner after that? And then he could go off, couldn't he?
Yeah, he let us take the first corner. Well, after he forced Junior to run, back sort of near the penalty area. Thankfully it was us taking the corner as opposed to us defending one. And then we won another corner. They cleared it, and there's another corner. And then he allowed the substitution to take place. It just, I just wonder what the reason was why the substitution couldn't take place at the time. And it doesn't really matter in the wider sort of narrative of the game, but it did symbolise the odd refereeing and officialdom that went on yesterday. And I don't want to bang on about the referees, and I guess we did have any luck that was going yesterday overall, but he said Mike. The last 2 times I've seen him, he's put in some very, very strange performances, and it's I suppose like everything else when you come up to the Premier League, you're kind of hoping for a higher standard of refereeing, and it's not any different than the lower leagues, is it?
Not really. Not really. They got, yeah. I mean, the players are better at manipulating situations and whatever. And yeah, the refs have still got the same equipment, haven't they? You know, like their eyes and ear and the two assistant referees. But yeah, I mean, there has been some shocking decisions not go for us this year. I mean, in last season there was Mike Dean and who was it? Then at Cardiff, that was Lee Mason. He's a Premier League referee, isn't he? One who disallowed Callum's goal when the goalie kicked it into his back.
He made up his own rule then, didn't he?
So yeah, even last year, the Premier League referees were just as wonky as the others. But yeah, you can't do much about them, can you?
This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear, your local micropub on Southbourne Grove, where you can't watch the game, but you can definitely talk about it. Head to the White Bear on any AFCB match day wearing your team shirt and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
So, into the second half, obviously Tony Pulis had a chance to rearrange his troops, but we started off pretty much in the same vein as in all of the first half, but they did have one really good chance when Rondon brought down a high ball, had a very good first touch, and he fired a screamer towards goal. And Artur Boruc didn't have a lot to do yesterday, but he did well with this one. He was very quick to react and strong hands to push it over. I thought that was a very good save.
Yeah, it certainly looked at from down the other end of the pitch like we were, when you see the highlights, it did look a good reaction save, didn't it, to get a strong hand, push it well over the bar and clear it. But Rondon didn't sort of impress me much apart from that. He took it under control, didn't he, and really cracked the shot off pretty quick. But but again, I think that was just a long ball into the box, wasn't it?
Yeah, they just pump it up and hope for the best. They paid a lot of money for him. I don't think their fans have been too impressed. I think he scored 3 goals this season. He could have scored then, if not for Boruc's reactions. And Boruc, well, not much to do yesterday. It's obviously easier for a goalkeeper when there's not much to do, but when called upon, he did do enough. I don't think there's any doubt at the moment in Eddie's mind that Artur Boruc is the number one goalkeeper, isn't he?
Yeah. Since he's come back the last few games, he has made some crucial saves, and vital times. Those two against Man United, it's before they scored their goal. That was right in front of us, the Man United ones, and they were just excellent saves. The double save. So I just thought either one of those is going to go in now. But yeah, he has looked so much sharper. There's just something about him. He looks a lot more focused and clearer in the last few games. Sort of when you see him, because we sit right behind the goal there, and you get quite a good view of him. And he just looks a lot more focused when the ball's not near him, and that when we're attacking down the other end, he just seems to have got it all together again now. And long may that continue.
Yeah, I think the way that he started to play with more confidence, the way that our defence, although we conceded 2 goals in the last 3 games, so we're not leaking the goals like we were in that period. I mean, he obviously had that nightmare against Tottenham. He didn't play against Man City, but our defensive work was not great until recently. There's still probably a bit of room for improvement. It'd be nice to get a few more clean sheets, but that's another confidence boost for the goalkeeper when they know they're not going to constantly be exposed by their defence. So those things adding up, and we found a a way to have a back four consistently, even though it wouldn't have been the one you would have necessarily predicted at the start of the season. Players, obviously Simon Francis is technically playing out of position, but making it look very much his natural position. But yeah, I mean, that's all a bonus, I think, for Boritz, and it's going to make him feel happier. He went through a bit of a funny spell. I mean, not just on the pitch, but in terms of his performances, but also the injuries. He was in and out of the team and on the bench. It was difficult to know what was really going on. There might have been other stuff going on. It might have just been the injury. But it's good that it's kind of settled down a bit, the goalkeeping situation now, and hopefully he can stay fit and carry on playing like he is. And that will, fingers crossed, if we can retain the back four and the way they've been performing, lead to a lot less goals being conceded. And on the subject of goals, we scored in the 52nd minute, and this was the second goal in the past few weeks from Adam Smith. I'm not sure if it was quite as good as his goal of the month contender, but it was a really good goal, and it was all his own work. He received the ball out wide from Andrew Sermon, who doesn't get mentioned a lot on this podcast, except for me to always say that he invariably will play really well and hardly ever puts a foot wrong, and a lot of the play goes through him. He found Adam Smith out wide, and Smith cut in side as he often does, and he just ran away from Johnny Evans. It almost looked like Evans couldn't be bothered, although I did read subsequently that some of the squad were ill, although if they were unable to perform and run fast enough, maybe they shouldn't have actually been on the pitch. But anyway, and then Adam Smith didn't hesitate or spray the ball around the edge of the penalty area as we were discussing earlier, but just fired it low into the corner. It's becoming a bit of a happy habit for Adam Smith scoring goals, isn't it?
It is. Like you say, I mean, he just said, we were saying, we were just passing it to death in the first half, and you just think again he's sort of running across, he's going to look to play someone in, and he just suddenly took a shot, and it wasn't a pile driver or anything, was it? It was placed perfectly to score, without the pace on it, and I think it probably took all the Bournemouth fans by surprise as well when he shot and actually put it in the net, because we were just used to, by then, our players sort of running with it a bit and passing it, and he's really played well the last few games, hasn't he, Adam Smith, since Simon's had to move across into centre half. Smith he's getting better game by game, I think, as he's always going to be an attacking fullback, isn't he? He's not in the sort of Neil Young mould of just being a really good stopping fullback. He's going to be always getting forward, but he can trap a ball and run past a bloke all in one movement, can't he?
Yeah, he's great going forwards, and his defensive work's definitely improving as well. And Eddie demands that of his defenders, especially his two fullbacks. He wants them to be the jack of all trades in terms of being able to defend and get up and down the pitch and contribute to the attacking play as well. And we've seen it from Simon Francis himself and Charlie Daniels for a long time. And Smith just also perfectly suits that kind of role, doesn't he?
He certainly does at the moment. He's settled in, but the only thing with Smithy is that he's prone to sort of fall over easy, isn't he? And he also he can give away a rash free kick every now and then. I wouldn't say he gets the same red miss that McLean gets, but every now and then he'll push someone or just do a reckless challenge, won't he? I think he did that at West Ham, was it, or this year? And it's something that I think Eddie he must work so hard. It must take ages to sort of try and eradicate that from a player, just that sort of thing. And then they gradually get better and better, don't they? Harry Arter he's not diving in the same as he has done in his other 3 or 4 seasons. He's not getting booked for such reckless tackles and that anymore, is he? I'm not saying he doesn't make errors anymore, but he's mature. Eddie seems to get him to mature, doesn't he, and think a bit more.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Eddie's impact on the players in terms of their performances and their mentality is enormous, and is obviously the major reason for the success that we've had. I'm just going back to the goal. When I saw it from behind the goal, I was really surprised it went in, because he didn't look like you said, it wasn't a pile driver. He placed it in the corner. I was surprised Myhill didn't get to it. He looked like he got down really slowly. On the television, you can see why, which I didn't realise at the time. Myhill was unsighted, and that was why he didn't get down fast enough. There was no behind the goal camera, I came to realise when I was watching it. And so where I was standing, I said to my mate who I went with, why didn't Boaz Myhill get down and save it? It was a really poor attempt by him to get to the ball. And I also thought he was culpable for the goal that Callum Wilson scored in the League Cup that won us that tie last year. And but what actually happened was when Smith kicked the ball, there was a couple of players, I don't know who it was, maybe one of ours, one of theirs, in his eye line, and the ball just snuck in the corner. So it was fortunate in that sense, but we deserved to be ahead. And, Alan Green said last night on the television that Bournemouth take the lead that they so richly deserved. It's lovely to hear commentators say things like that. He's never really been a big fan of Alan Green's, but he went up slightly in my estimation there.
He's one of our favourite broadcasters.
And anyway, so we're 1-0 up, and you hope then that we're going to, play or sort of they're going to play into our hands then by having to make the game a bit more, therefore giving us more space in behind them because they've only got 10 men to go for the second. And we did attempt to go for a second goal at first after the goal. Richie had a shot which was deflected. Junior Stanislas burst through at one point, and he was clean through, but it wasn't as simple as that sounds, because he was at a very, very narrow angle, and he slammed the shot at Myhill from the angle, trying to sort of force it past him at the near post. But Myhill just about got enough of his body in the way, with maybe a little bit of help from the post, to keep it out. But then after that, we went through a period of maybe 10 minutes, maybe slightly longer, where we did surrender the initiative to them. And we started to defend much deeper, and the possession game kind of collapsed for a while, which gave them the opportunity then to pump the ball into our box. And obviously that wasn't in the script, or I'm assuming it wasn't, but you just wonder why we allowed that to happen when everything else was going so well, and we were able to, with such apparent ease, deny West Brom the ball, but then we allowed them to get, well, they did get back into it, but we, before the goal, we allowed them to get a foothold back in the game, didn't we? Yeah,
we did. It's sort of like you say, because, we noticed that, and they sort of had one attack, and it woke the whole ground up, because, the West Brom fans, first half, were pretty quiet, weren't they, for the reputation they've got. But once they come out for the second half, the fans were a bit more fired up, and they were, I think, Sessegnon, I noticed him a bit more than the bloke he replaced. But and like you said, we seem to fall into that trap every now and then. All of a sudden, they have a corner or pump the ball in, and we get the ball out, but no one sort of charges out. They're just expecting it to come back in again, aren't they? And we just slowly get pushed back, and we can't get the ball past the halfway line. And especially against West Brom, it's going to just come back in the air, isn't it? And we can just never. Everyone's back there just to try and head the ball clear, and eventually the inevitable happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was a lot of us then booting the ball out of defence in order, to kind of just booting it to safety, which wasn't safety, because it would land in the midfield. One of their defenders or defensive midfielder would get hold of it and just put it back in towards Arthur Boris's goal and hope somebody would be there. They brought Ricky Lambert on for Brunt. Lambert, of course, got the standard abuse from us, obviously with his Southampton connections. But it was, a clear move to try and continue that aerial bombardment. Not that they didn't have quite a few players that were suited to that game on the pitch before Lambert came on. And so it continues, and then they scored in the 79th minute, and I felt it was coming the way that things have been going for the reasons that we just discussed. Charlie Daniels conceded the corner, and then Craig Gardner crossed it in. It was obviously, planned, and we've done all right out of corners recently. We didn't do well with this one. This was obviously defending one as opposed to at the other end of the pitch, and it dropped in on the near corner of the 6-yard box, and Macaulay got up first. He sort of moved forward just before the ball was kicked. He knew where it was going to go. He got up first and kind of glanced it on ahead of Jan Kermagon, and Simon Francis was in the picture as well. And it was one of those that either is going to be dropping into the middle of the 6-yard box, maybe near the back post, and then someone might go on the end of it, or, and this is what happened, unfortunately, just go straight in the goal. I didn't think Boris had much chance because it kind of just looped past him once Macaulay had got his head on it, and it went in off the far post. It did look like, from where we were, that Rondon had got a foot to it, but you can see on the telly Rondon tried to get a foot to it, but it had already gone in. I was also hoping that, briefly, that it was not in. It hadn't crossed the line because it didn't hit the back of the net, did it? But then you see on the telly, it's clearly, a good foot and a half over the line. There's no doubt about it. And then it was a disappointing goal to concede, but it's always disappointing to concede a goal. But I mean, I would have taken a draw when I set off yesterday morning. I'd have thought, well, I'll be happy with a draw today. But if that had been a draw yesterday as a result of that goal, it would have felt like a defeat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly. Because we, as you were saying earlier about beating Man United and Chelsea, they're not playing that well. And all this week we've been sort of discussing, saying that West Brom would be a big test for us because of just the way they play and their current form and that. And as you say, to be 1-0 up against 10 men and dominating most of the game up till then, the majority of it. I thought, 10 minutes ago, and they've equalised. Their tails are going to be up, and I'd be happy with a draw then. But somehow we came back, didn't we? But I think exactly the same as you. A draw before the game would have been a good result, but as the game was panning out, a draw would have been a robbery again, wouldn't it, of us? But
it's strange because you say we somehow came back into it. I think, as we discussed about us surrendering the initiative to them, they almost immediately, once they'd equalised, did the same. They stopped banging the ball into the box so much. They started thinking about playing for a point. We were able to then retain possession for longer periods and once again dominate the game. And it kind of fell into our lap a little bit in that sense, whereas they should have just continued what they were doing prior to the goal because they were having much more success. But they didn't think to themselves, once they scored, we'll go for the win now, we can win this game. They overall seemed to just, again, just like we did, they started to defend deeper, let us have more of the ball, and just not do what had been successful for them, which I thought was, I don't know, you see that sort of thing happen a lot, and the mentality will quickly change in a team and their approach to the game, and it must be something that drives managers crazy because, in both cases, when we surrendered the initiative to them and then them to us following their goal, both teams stopped doing what was working for them. And you just wonder why they do it.
It was. I mean, I got to admit, we had one of the very few times we left just before the end. We saw the penalty, and we had to go. And we heard a bit of a cheer when we were outside, and there were loads of West Brom fans cleared out when we scored our penalty, because we had to try and beat the crowd to get away. And we heard a cheer, and I thought, they've equalised, but I think it's that Rondon guy getting sent off. But again,
right.
as you were saying, like they seemed to settle for a point, didn't they? And I'm not saying anything about say like TK's or Jan's abilities, but we had those two on, and they've I don't think they'd have played hardly an hour of Premier League football between them, would they? And that was our forward line. You'd have thought that West Brom would have just kept pressing. They'd got the equaliser, and they were having all the success from just launching the ball into the penalty area. But luckily they didn't. So
no, like you said, we brought Ranty on for Harry Arter, so we went two up front because Jan was already on for Glenn Murray. Murray, well, it wasn't really his game yesterday. A bit like when he played against Southampton. I think he's done pretty well for us overall, but definitely wasn't his day yesterday, and he had to kind of try and play to the Josh King game plan, which isn't his at all. Anyway, I was actually Ranty only came on in the 82nd minute, and I thought he played quite a significant role in the time he was on the pitch. He gave us he sometimes comes on and he looks over eager to do something really significant, and almost runs into cul-de-sacs and then loses the ball, or his first touch is a bit nervy. I thought all that was improved yesterday. He seemed to stick to the game plan a lot more, and he gave us a useful out ball with his pace, which we hadn't had really up to that point. And I thought, even though it was only a 16-minute cameo or whatever, it was quite an impressive shift from Ranty, and I know that he's popular amongst the fans. And he's obviously a really nice guy, but I've always been a bit dubious about the fandom surrounding him, because it's not really been, well, it hasn't been evident in his actual play. But yesterday, I mean, if he played like that a lot more, he'd have, if he came into the team and we were short of strikers and he was playing like that, I think he, like a lot of players that have surprised us, Junior Stanislas being one, could have more success. So there's still hope that one day Randy will have his day of glory that we all would love to see. But anyway, he was on the pitch, and he did have a hand in us getting the penalty as well. But prior to that, despite them sitting back a bit more, they did have one gilt-edged chance when they won a free kick. Simon Francis conceded a free kick, and Craig Gardner seems to be their dead ball man. He took it, and Dawson had a gilt-edged header, and he somehow managed to miss the target. That was a bit of a let-off for us, that one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think that's sort of like, it's like the reverse of early season form, isn't it? That went our way yesterday, whereas when we first came up into this division, all those little things just went against us. 6 weeks ago, that Dawson would have had that header and it had gone in, or hit someone and gone in, wouldn't it? But when you get back and see it on the telly, it was, you wonder how he a player, because I mean, West Brom have got players that are better at heading the ball than kicking it. Some of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really,
some of them are better at kicking other players than kicking the ball.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised when we saw it on the replays and that a West Brom player to actually miss the target, because he, like you say, he had a more or less clear header as well, didn't he? Unopposed, sort of running in. Yeah. But again, I don't think as many from Bournemouth would be moaning about that, will they?
Oh no, and I suppose if anybody from West Brom was listening to us having this conversation, they'd be have much different opinions, but from our point of view, he missed it, so it was lucky. It was a bit of a let off because he should have scored, and then they would have probably gone on to win the game. But it would have been, I definitely think it would have been an injustice. I mean, us getting just a point would have been an injustice. So us getting no points would have been similar, probably even worse than the time we got no points against Newcastle. Yeah. So anyway, that wasn't what happened. We did get all 3 points, and it wasn't long after Dawson's generous miss that we got the penalty. And this was, leading up to the penalty, Ricky Lambert made everybody from Bournemouth like him a little bit more, because he really made a mess of getting hold of the ball in the kind of middle of their half, and then lost it. And I think Ranty was involved. I think he may have had started the move that led to the ball, and then Gosling received the ball and just charged straight into the penalty area, or straight towards the penalty area, should I say. And Darren Fletcher, who was also one who didn't be able to seem to run at anything like the correct pace for a professional footballer, sort of loped behind him. I mean, I don't know if he's been affected by this bug in the West Brom camp, and he just brought him down with a pretty poor kind of mangle of legs that he could have avoided. So it's definitely a foul. The question, obviously, that's been replayed and spoken about ever since was it inside or outside the box? I don't know what you think. I thought, well, if I was a West Brom supporter, if that was us, if it was the other way round, and Sessegnon had gone down in exactly the same place, I'd have said that's not a penalty. He's not inside the box. Obviously, I'm not a West Brom fan. I'm a Bournemouth fan, so I'm thinking, great, that's a penalty. Did you think, it's difficult to look at it objectively, but did you think it was really a penalty?
Well, no, you've just summed it up. It's a penalty when it goes for you. It's nailed on, isn't it? When your team gets the penalty, but it's not a penalty when it goes against you. But I've been reading some of the debates about it, and people are saying that the letter of the law, contact was outside, but it finished inside, and so that was a penalty. But yeah, it's another reason why I would never ever want to be a referee, because
it's a thankless task.
It is, really. It is. I'm just pleased that these sort of things are beginning to sort of even themselves up a bit, aren't they? But,
yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, this would be no consolation if you're a West Brom supporter, but I guess that isn't our concern. We had the one against Swansea, which looked very harsh. There wasn't really a lot Simon Francis could have done short of chopping his own leg off to avoid that. But he gave it, and some people, even I saw some of our fans saying, well, that's a penalty. That's the way it goes. Those are the rules. So, if an offence is committed outside the box, then it should be black and white that it's not a penalty. Yeah. But anyway, like you said, there's been some, I haven't looked up the rule, but there's been some suggestion that the contact continuing as the players go into the box, therefore, means that it is a penalty. I mean, from what I could see, almost all the contact with the legs happened just outside the box. So I guess by the letter of the law, you would say no penalty. Luckily for us, that didn't happen. We did get the penalty, and that was a pretty nervy 30 seconds, seemed like longer, between when he awarded the penalty and when Charlie Daniels took it. We've had, probably for quite a long time, discussions amongst the fans about what is going on with the penalty takers. We've had Brett Pittman and Jan Kermagon seem to be in the box seat last season. Ian Hart took one and missed. Callum Wilson took a couple. He missed the first one he took. And Jan and Brett were never guaranteed a place in the team throughout the course of the season. Then this season, we've only had one, I think. Glenn Murray took it and missed against Watford. Glenn Murray wasn't on the pitch yesterday, but it's since emerged that Charlie Daniels apparently has been designated the penalty taker since we played Manchester City. I believe Chris Temple revealed that to somebody in a motorway service station yesterday. I also saw, I don't know if you watched that YouTube piece of 3 or 4 of the players playing FIFA. Adam Smith was one, Simon France anyway. And Charlie Daniels wasn't playing in this little FIFA tournament they had, but he was, because the players were playing as Bournemouth, he came up to take a penalty. And one of them, I can't remember who it was, said, it's the designated. He didn't use these words, but the words he used suggested Charlie was the designated penalty taker. He took a few seasons ago when we were down in the lower leagues, and he is one that's been spoken about as somebody that should come in and take the penalties because he's always on the pitch and he strikes the dead ball well. But that delay between when they gave the penalty and when he took it, it wasn't that long. There was all that nonsense with the bag as well. I don't know about you. It seemed like about 3 minutes.
It just seemed forever, didn't it? And that, because I noticed in the build up to the penalty, the bag sort of just by the halfway line, so it made its way to the penalty area, and then the build up, because my wife won't watch penalties, so she had her head buried in her hands, and Kelvin, he was in a wheelchair just along from us, and he turned right round. He couldn't watch it, and it did, and then. Charlie was stood there and they were putting him off, and then that bag appears next to the ball, and Pewey ran up and took it away, didn't he? But when he took it and it hit the underside of the bar, not the top of the bar, it was a perfect penalty, wasn't it? It was, it was nerve wracking, especially like you say, just to have conceded 5-6 minutes earlier and right near the end of the game. And to actually get a chance in front of us, it was one of those things you love, isn't it? When it goes in, it was brilliant. But if a couple of inches higher to smack the bar and gone out, it would have been heartache again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, he slammed it in, and again on the telly, it just looks like. He almost broke the net, and it was total confidence, and I'm sure that was what he was feeling. I wasn't feeling that, and even when he took it and it hit, I mean, it all happens very fast, but I guess it's like sometimes things seem to go in slow motion, and when it hit the woodwork, you sort of think, well, which part of it has it hit, and is it going to bounce out again or go over? And then it was in, and it was like, obviously, then there's delirium all around you. There's nothing like a late goal away from home to win a game. But it looked a lot more convincing penalty when I saw it on the telly, although obviously I knew it was in by then, than when I saw it at the time. But anyway, fair play to him. He had to hold his nerve and put it in, and having not taken one for such a long time. The bag reappeared. I noticed when he took the penalty, it was behind Mark Pugh. He'd thrown it on the ground. Then Steve Cook, for some reason, picked it up and ran over with it, and the bag had its own little celebration with the Bournemouth players.
I missed that.
I'm not really sure what went on there, but anyway, maybe brought us a little bit of luck. But I suppose from our point of view, justice was done. It certainly felt like it on the balance of play and all that sort of thing. We could have had a couple more goals. Well, certainly one more. I mean, Adam Smith had a pop. Probably wasn't really a goal. Well, it was goal bound, but was only half a chance in terms of Myhill didn't have to do a lot to save it. Pugh though they unlocked the door for Pugh, as we talked earlier about all this play around the edge of the area. Well, Mark Pugh was in this time, and he did this thing he describes as the chop in the area, where he just pulls it round and like dummies the player. A bit like at West Ham, although he's a bit close to the goal on this occasion. He should have scored actually, but he didn't quite connect with it as well as he would have liked. Certainly not as well as he did at Upton Park, and Myhill saved it. And then, but the drama wasn't over. I think you'd probably left the ground by now, but we tried to see the game out, and against Chelsea and United, I thought we did that very well, very professional. We were able to sort of stop the play and run the clock down and all the things that drives you crazy when you see another team doing it. But it's great when your own team's doing it. It wasn't quite as nerveless this time, although we did do well a couple of times holding it in the corners, and Randy's pace was giving us an opportunity to release the ball. But they kept booting it back in, West Brom, which is, fair enough. That's perfectly fine in terms of that's how they want to play the game, and winning throw-ins in our half. And it did lead to a pretty nervy last few minutes. And also, one of these throw-ins went to Rondon, who then got the ball and controlled it on the left-hand side near our penalty area, and Dan Gosling went in with the challenge. And I think Gosling felt he was pushed to the ground by Rondon, so Gosling jumped up and sort of went over and started giving him the verbal, and they were quite close to each other. I wasn't that impressed with Gosling's reaction, to be honest, and I thought it was quite surprising that he wasn't at least booked by the referee following what then happened. But Rondon, in the same, well, not quite, it wasn't as bad as McLean, but similarly sort of idiotic. He did everything that he could to get the referee to send him off. He kicked out at Dan Gosling, and then their heads were together, which was the bit I really thought Gosling maybe shouldn't have got involved in. But Rondon pushed his head then into war. He didn't headbutt him because they already had contact, but he sort of pushed him. I wouldn't say pushed him down, but Gosling went down anyway. And then, of course, the referee sent him off. I mean, it didn't have any impact on the game because it was so late in the game. But it was just another example of how, if you're going to get your players to walk that line between aggression and violent conduct, it's a risky strategy, isn't it?
It is, really, because I was surprised when we got home and found out that it was Rondon that had been sent off, because I was saying to Phil, my wife, that early in he looked too sort of mild mannered for a Pulis type player. Early in the sort of first half, he sort of helped one of our players sort of up and more or less saying, sorry for barging into you or whatever. But then we got home and saw the replays on Match of the Day, and he I don't know. I don't know whether he just fancied having Christmas off or what. He did. Him and Gosling sort of were butting heads, weren't they? And then you could see he sort of kicked out at him as well. And again, you do wonder what goes through their mind, that he didn't look the sort who had such a flash temper that he would lose it in the 95th minute or something, and to just lose self-control. And I agree with you. I was surprised that Gosling won, because they normally, in an incident like that, one gets booked and one gets sent off or something, don't they? Well, they both get booked, but for Gosling not to get booked for putting his head in, but it was an odd thing, and it's at the West Brom now, but I mean, they're only about a point above us now, aren't they?
Yeah, it's just a point. I mean, we've got 19 points now, which I didn't think we'd have a few weeks ago. We seem to be stuck on 8 points from about 6 weeks, it felt like. And, obviously we won the last 3 games. We drew the 2 before them, so picking up points all the time. I did think before the West Brom game that I'd be delighted if we had 20 points by the turn of the year. We've got 2 more games before the end of this year. Crystal Palace are up next. They're a good team. There's no two ways about it. I mean, Pardew's been doing a really good job there. They've been winning away from home a lot. But, I mean, we're having a superb run at the moment, and you just, instead of, which I certainly was a few weeks ago, I think most fans were going along to the games worried about what was going to happen and what was going to happen to us each week, and I guess kind of expecting us to lose. We're now going into a game against anyone, believing we're going to win, aren't we?
Well, the comeback against Everton seems to have sparked things, doesn't it? But, I mean, just before that, when we played Newcastle, with, we didn't get a point out of that, let alone all three. And it's gradually sort of picked up from that and got momentum. And you can see sort of yesterday, the team I know we got pushed back a bit in the second half, but overall they've got a lot more self-belief, and they're all beginning to feel like Premier League players now. Whereas before I thought at times they, I don't know what the word is, that they were like expecting to make a mistake or get shown up or something, but they all seem to be playing with a lot more confidence and belief, and I think the fans have as well. We've seemed to have responded to the performances from more or less from the second half of the Southampton game, isn't it? We played. If we'd had a bit more confidence in front of goal than that game, that would have been a draw at least. And from then on, going in 2-0 down, and you think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen now? And then the second half, we didn't score, but we were by far the best team. And then losing to Newcastle, it was still the best team. But you talk about late goals. That the feeling from the junior Stanislav Everton equaliser, that is the thing of dreams, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, the what you say about the Southampton game is true. You get the feeling there was a bit of a difficult scene in the dressing room at St Mary's at half time. Glenn Murray went off and Eddie changed it around a bit, and it was almost I don't know if he had it planned at some point to do it. It was almost like he chanced upon the system that we've kind of played ever since, and hopefully Junior Stanislas and Josh King will not be out of the Christmas fixtures with their hamstrings. But yeah, we sort of somehow came across a system that would work, and it's worked. It's worked a treat. So long may it continue. And yeah, we seem to do well in December, and so far so good. Now, before we finish up, I know that you see the game in a different way to a lot of the people that will be listening to this show. Your wife Phil is in a wheelchair, is that right?
Yeah.
And you so obviously use the disabled supporters facilities at the stadiums around the country. How was the Hawthorns yesterday in that respect?
It wasn't bad. We were right down the front, but I mean, at least we were in with our fans. We were in front of our fans. There was only like 2 disabled toilets for the whole of that stand, but for older grounds, it's not that brilliant. They can only do so much, they say. I think with all the money in the Premier League, a lot of these clubs could do better. But the stewards and all that were pretty good, but I assume when all the away fans come out, you all went up that ramp. I mean, pushing a grown woman up there, if it was any steeper, it would have been a wall. But and I'm not getting any younger. You definitely need a breather when you get to the top of that. But I mean, that's just the way old grounds were designed. They weren't necessarily designed for wheelchairs, were they? But where we went to Stoke. I mean, and that was, for a new stadium, that was shockingly poor. There's only like four wheelchair spaces for away fans, and you're right in the corner. Phil didn't see 2 of the 3 goals up there because you just couldn't see the goalmouth. You think, it's surprising. Sort of, there's teams in the lower leagues, or grounds in the lower leagues, do a lot more for wheelchairs and disabled fans, or it appears that way, than they do in the Premier League, which, when you think of all the wealth in the Premier League, they could. I just feel they could do a bit more. But it does put our club in a really good light compared to...
I was going to say, how do we at Dean Court compare to other teams in terms of our access for disabled supporters?
Well, obviously, we got cherry tinted glasses, me and the wife, but we do the actual number of wheelchair spaces that we provide and that, I know they're all at ground level. You go in some, like, I think Swansea, they're all sort of halfway up and they've got plenty of room, and it is a pretty good there. And the Etihad were pretty good facilities for wheelchairs. But for the little club, for our little ground, I think we give away fans 20 wheelchair spaces, out of 11,000 capacity in it. You go to Stoke, and what's that? It's about 30,000, and the away fans have got four or five seats, 4 or 5 wheelchair spaces. And I think from our experience, we've been to clubs that are nearly as good, but we're definitely the best as far as we're concerned.
Oh, that's good to hear. And is it the so it's not necessarily the modern stadiums that provide the best facilities, because from what you're saying, it's a bit of a mixed bag, is it?
Yeah, it's just surprising, because you thought the Britannia, a new stadium, and the wheelchair spaces, they were halfway up. You'd have thought there'd have been more of them, but they obviously weren't factored in when they built it. I think, where did we go? West Ham. That's an old stadium, isn't it? We were right at the back, sat behind the West Ham fans.
All right.
And so, like at half time, if a wife wanted a drink, a coffee, I would have had to go and queue up with all the West Ham fans in my Bournemouth shirt, just stand on their concourse, and we were winning 2-0, weren't we?
You don't really want that, do you?
Not really, even though it was a boiling hot day, all of a sudden we weren't that thirsty.
No.
Yeah, it is. It is a mixed bag. I think, like Chelsea, what are they, 40-odd thousand there, isn't it? We had 5, I think there's 5 wheelchair spaces. And where Dean Court has got so many, if you have a look around the ground, virtually the whole of the front row is filled with wheelchair users or people with some disability. So we've got, in proportion to the size of our crowd, we've got an awful lot of disabled fans. And so when you get a chance to go to Chelsea, there's only 5 spaces for them. We just thought, we're going up to so-called richest league in the world. We're going to be, we'll get the same sort of standard of treatment we get at Dean Court. But it's surprising, really. So it's
what to expect?
Whoever designed Dean Court when it was back in the community days and all that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think
in terms of going, are you going to Arsenal? Do you know what to expect there?
Yeah, I think they're one of the, I think there's 3 clubs. There's us, Arsenal, and maybe Southampton have meet the actual 100% of what's expected of percentage of wheelchair spaces.
There's 3 clubs in the entire league. That's boring,
in the whole division.
Really.
I think something like Tottenham, they're only got like 28% or something. They're so, well, it's an old ground and we're moving soon. But, there's some, I think Old Trafford's not very good either.
Really?
But I think hopefully we'll be at Arsenal and we should get well looked after there.
Well, I certainly hope so. Sounds like it's a bit of an up and down experience in more ways than one following Bournemouth when you've got to use the disabled facility.
The Liverpool ones, because we read that, I think you were with the home fans and it was a restricted view, and it's hard enough for able-bodied people to do 400 or 500 miles in a day, isn't it? But disabled people, it's sort of doubly hard. Just the effort of actually going there, and you make all that effort and you go there and you've got to sit with your opposition fans. You want to go mad like yesterday when you score. You want it all. That's one of the main thrills of going.
Yeah.
Is that all the disabled, everyone in the Bournemouth section all felt exactly the same yesterday, didn't they? When you score and that penalty goes in, you're all delirious. It's a really good thing. It's one of the best things about football. It's just the equalising effect of, don't matter who you are or where your backgrounds, anything. You just, when your team scores, you can't beat it, can you?
I've had a great December so far, and I hope you continue to travel the country, and I hope the disabled facilities at all the grounds reach 100% as soon as possible. I think some of them sound like they're a bit of a frustration and a disappointment, but fingers crossed it'll be a good experience at the Emirates. It sounds like they're on top of things there. So thanks for coming on the show, Tony, and have a very happy Christmas.
And I hope it all goes well. See you Boxing Day.
Full marks to Tony there. Very interesting to learn more about watching our beloved Cherries from his point of view. Palace and Arsenal coming up in quick succession after Christmas Day, so I suspect I will double up and review those two games in a single podcast once I've returned from the Emirates. That just leaves me to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I hope you have as good a time as our heroes in red and black have had for themselves so far during Advent. Salt and Cherries in all departments, and goodbye.
This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear Micropub in Southbourne-on-Sea. No loud music, no TVs, and no ringtones. Just good ale, good conversation, and good times. Just like a pub used to be. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.